Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we talk about the latest news, information and analysis of what's really going on in Russia and the BRICS. Now, my name is Rhod Mackenzie, and today I want to talk about the major demographic problem for the three Baltic states of Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia, because their populations and birth rates are declining rapidly, with many of their former residents choosing to disperse to other places in the EU, and others are opting out of becoming parents altogether. Their local authorities have expressed verbally their concerns about the current situation, but their actions actually demonstrate a different priority. Instead of increasing spending on encouraging families to have children and increase the birth rate, they've actually opted for military spending to contain an allegedly aggressive Russia. Now, this is actually a quite ironic policy, as the highest birth rates in the history of the three countries was back in 1998, when all three were Soviet republics along with Russia. Now, the combination of demographically unfavourable trends raises the question of whether the Baltic states will disappear from the political map, or whether they will have to transform themselves into something else. I mean, in Lithuania, the practice of getting married and starting a family is being delayed, postponed, or is just not happening. In terms of demographics, now the Republic of Lithuania is regarded as the most prosperous of the three Baltic states. However, it should be noted that the country has also experienced a decline of almost 1 million people in the 34 years since its independence. While the population of Lithuania today is around 2.9 million, back in 1991 it was 3.8 million. Now, last year there was only 18,979 newborns registered in the country, representing the lowest number of live births since 1990. According to demographers, widespread financial difficulties and cultural changes, a term used to refer to the strengthening of the LGBT propaganda, are leading to young people postponing marriage and parenthood. Those who do decide on having a family often limit themselves to one or even a maximum of 2 children. Now, although there's been a minor increase in the population of Lithuania in recent years, this is due to immigration, with a significant influx of freeloaders on welfare like Ukrainians, as well as an increase in the number of so-called refugees, of people sent by the EU from Asia and Africa. Now, the Lithuanian Minister of Social Protection and Labour, Inga Rugini, has expressed her concerns on the matter. She says life in general in Lithuania is becoming more expensive, and our young people are working it out. It's extremely difficult for a young family to buy a home. In order to purchase a property, it's necessary to have sufficient income and savings. Many young people find that working several jobs is the best way to save up for a down payment. So that's the reason why families planning is being postponed. Consequently, the local birth rate is now at 1.8, which is significantly lower than the population replacement rate of 2.1. Now, before I continue, I would like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and contribute to its further development. You can do this by making a small donation, which you can do by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen on the right hand side, or by clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the credits below. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me, and I'm thanking you all now. Now, some municipalities are exploring strategies to enhance the demographic landscape, including the implementation of financial incentives. For instance, in this year, the city of Radviliškis in its suburbs have been providing families a €1,500 grant for each child born, which is the highest amount anywhere in the country. However, this initiative has not been met with widespread enthusiasm, as it's a one-time payment, and once this money has been spent, that's the end of the matter. However, they don't seem to understand that raising a child requires a significant amount of time, effort and financial investment, and a child just does not cost €1,500 according to residents of Radviliškis. Now, at the end of April, the statistics were published showing that the number of Lithuanians living in absolute poverty, which is monthly income below $500, had reached almost 170,000 people, 60,000 more than the previous year. Plus around 600,000, which is one-fifth of the population of Lithuania, lives just above the poverty line, and they're mainly pensioners, single parents, the unemployed, and families with children. Now, this places Lithuania among the highest poverty ranking list in the main countries in the EU, with only Bulgaria and Latvia ranking as bigger poverty candidates. Now, the issue of poverty is particularly evident in rural areas, which is a key factor in the high rate of migration to other countries of the EU from these areas. Asit Adomavaikiu, who's head of Lithuanian NGO Fighting Poverty, reports that almost 10% of the country's residents cannot even afford the most basic foodstuffs of flour, sugar, etc. Now, the economist Alexander Izgodin from Citadel Bank has stated, despite Lithuania's position as one of the fastest growing economies in the EU, its economic model is predominantly reliant on the export of low-cost labour rather than on innovation. Now, the analyst's opinion that Lithuania's economic success is largely due to the continued export of low-cost labour to Germany and Scandinavia. Now, what's the situation in Latvia? Well, the demographic pit there is actually more of an abyss. The situation in Latvia is more challenging than in Lithuania, where birth rates continue to decline for the 7th month in a row, with fewer than 1,000 children being born. In November 2024, the country saw the birth of only 959 newborn babies. This was 933 in December and 881 in January, 890 in February and 900 in March, with 870 in April. Now, the next data from then on is not available, but that said, in the first 5 months of the year, the number of deaths in Latvia exceeded the number of births by 6,418. So it's evident there's a clear trend emerged. I mean, the highest birth rate recorded in Latvia, as I mentioned, was back in 1987, when 47,000 babies were born in the then Soviet Republic. So the difference between the number of deaths and births can also be added the number of people who are leaving, and many ain't coming back. So it's a challenging to ascertain the precise number of the individuals who are leaving due to the complexity involved in accurately registering the free movement of peoples within the European Union from each country. Now, at the beginning of 2025, official data indicated that the population of Latvia stood at 1,856,000. In 1991, it was 2.7 million. At the beginning of 2023, it was at 1,875,000. So it's a decrease of 80,400 people. Now, the number of those who departed over the year was only slightly less than the population of Jēkabpils, Ogar or Valmiera. These are large cities by Latvian standards, and more than those living in Salaspils. Now, after a decade, this figure totaled 129,000 in comparison to the two largest of city, Daugavpils and Jelgava, taken together had a population of 134,000 at the beginning of the year. So according to data from the Latvian Central Statistics Bureau, the largest annual decline in 10 years was recorded at lower than 18,000. Now, the previous decline in the population was recorded back in 2017, when the figure was 18,000 less than it was in 2016. However, many politicians and analysts believe even the current unfavourable population figure is being massaged, and they are massaging it on purpose so that the situation doesn't look as dire as it is. I mean, Riga Council member Iga Gibori has published the following statement on social media. She says, "In my professional opinion, a population of the country is just over 1 million. The remaining individuals have not yet provided information regarding their residence outside of the country." Now, a significant proportion of individuals who utilise my real estate service in the sale of their property do so just prior to their departure from the area with their intention not to return. We have already passed the point of no return, and the demographic void is becoming a demographic abyss. In terms of future projections, Giori states there's only two viable options, either to persuade all women of childbearing age to have at least 3 to 4 children, or to invite people from outside the country to come en masse. Now, the import of migrant workers is met with fierce opposition from the local nationalists, but their emotions have been shattered due to the harsh reality of the situation. I mean, if the current situations persist, the country will be unable to even provide state pensions. This will result in a further reduction of living standards and a major increase in taxes on those that are left. And it's unlikely that people would be willing to live in a country such as that, with even government officials looking to seek refuge elsewhere. I mean, at present, the national debt stands at approximately 53% of GDP, which is close to the EU mandated limit of 60%, which means that none of the countries can borrow money indefinitely, Giori emphasises, adding that nationalism will not solve the problem of poverty and hunger among the elderly people either. Now, she asserts that the state's increase in military expenditure, which is purported to address security concerns, is not going to benefit young people and those who are looking to start families. I mean, this is due to the budgetary constraints resulting from this military spending are being used to reduce spending on the vital sectors such as education and healthcare. That means there's going to be a lot fewer children being born, and it's even evident that the state biased media are no longer reluctant to acknowledge the absence of any imminent solutions to the demographic challenges. Now, it's clear that the situation will only get worse. On the one hand, the small generation of the 90s has entered the childbearing age, and subsequent generations are even smaller due to the mass migration that began in the early 2000s due to EU membership. Conversely, there's been an anticipated rise in natural, due to age, mortality of individuals who were born in actually what were more prosperous times of the Soviet Union, and that's resulting in a significant number of deaths. So therefore, it's anticipated that things are only going to get worse, and the population of Latvia will decrease by at least another 200,000. In the first 6 months of 2025, the number of births in Estonia was 500 fewer in the same period as of the previous year. In 2024, the birth rate once again broke the anti-record, but as it turned out this year it's even worse. Now, according to latest statistics, the number of births in Estonia from January to June 2025 was 4,467, and that represents a decrease of approximately 10% compared to the same period of the previous year. Now, the result was a blow to the state statistics service forecast of 11,000 births for the year. So the birth rate in Estonia has been declining year on year. In 2022, the corresponding figure was down by 12.7% and by 7.5% in 2023, falling below 11,000 for the first time. In 2024, the number of births in Estonia reached a new low with 9,646 children being born, which is the lowest since records began at the beginning of the 20th century. However, the mortality rate has also decreased. During the first 6 months of the year, 7,975 people died, and that represents a decrease of 129 people in comparison with the same period the previous year. Now, the former Justice Minister, Rhod Mackenzie, made the following prediction. She said this year the number of births will fall below 9,000, and local governments should prepare for the fact that in a couple of years they'll be closing kindergartens, and the 10 years following that it will be schools. Mackenzie advises entrepreneurs to consider the fact that as the labour shortage intensifies, Investments in labour-intensive industries will become very unprofitable. And she also, it's her opinion, that investing in a region with a shrinking population carries a high level of risk. And that's due to the tax burden is going to go up and the number of people support their country's tax base is going to go down, which logically means it's not going to be an ideal situation for those who pay taxes. The analysts have expressed concerns that the lower than expected birth rate will result in a reduction in government spending on family policies and education, potentially leading to another decrease in revenues of up to 1.3 billion in the long term. I mean, even looking at the least alarmist calculations, each unborn child means a loss of 100,000 to 200,000 euros in tax revenues for Estonia over its lifetime. Overall, the decline in birth rate in the country over the 40 to 60 years will reduce its tax base by 1.3 billion euros. Now, in a recent interview, Natalia Ermina, who's a director of political science at St. Petersburg University, noted that the Baltic countries most vividly reflect the general trend that's taken hold in the UK and the EU. She stated that there's a move towards a situation where the average person in the EU is going to be forced to work practically until death for just food and shelter. But they will not be able to afford to have children as they are now too expensive. And the trend towards urbanisation and high competition is in society, in which a person who has children, who spends his time, efforts and money on them is obviously considered a less competitive candidate for employment and less trustworthy. Another significant trend is the uncontrolled mobility of the workforce within the European Union. Since 2004, when the Baltic States joined the EU, the most energetic, hard-working residents of Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia have left the country to work in Western Europe and Scandinavia, with many choosing to stay there forever with their families. The most concerning aspect for the Baltic countries is they've lost the opportunity to reverse the situation. I mean, she said the point of no return has happened. So it's not looking good for the Baltic states, and it's not Russia that's going to be their problem, it's a lack of people. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. If you want to help me out, buy me a coffee by clicking on the link in the page and the credits. Thank you.